Welcome to the deep dive. You send us your sources and we extract the core knowledge and insights, aiming to give you a sharp understanding of the topic, tailored just for you.
Think of us as navigating this information with you, highlighting what truly matters.
Today, based on the material you shared, we're plunging into a particularly enduring mystery, the Kecksburg UFO incident of December 9th, 1965.
Our exploration today draws from excerpts of the Kecksburg UFO Artifact, a compilation covering, well, many facets of this event.
Exactly. We'll be examining the initial event, the reported artifact, the historical backdrop, compelling eyewitness accounts, governmental involvement, and the resulting secrecy.
All the theories about its origins, the surprising influence of local folklore.
Right, and how it compares to other well-known UFO cases, its reflection in popular culture, attempts at scientific scrutiny, and naturally the conspiracy theories that sprung up.
Our aim, really, is to dissect the most fascinating aspects of the Kecksburg incident, to consider the diverse interpretations that have emerged, and maybe understand why this specific event continues to captivate our collective curiosity.
So, we have this intriguing premise, sources pointing to a significant, unexplained event. Let's begin at the beginning and look at what exactly transpired on that December evening.
Okay, on that night, December 9th, a remarkably bright fireball was witnessed, streaking across the sky. And not just locally, by numerous individuals spanning several states and even parts of Canada.
Wow, so a major
A
sighting.
huge sighting. This dramatic celestial display culminated in a reported crash, or at least something coming down, in the vicinity of Kecksburg, a small town nestled in Pennsylvania.
It sounds like an event that immediately drew attention.
Oh, absolutely, it did. The reported crash near Kecksburg instantly generated interest from local residents, the media, and very soon after, from government officials. This wasn't something that went unnoticed.
And almost immediately, we start seeing these eyewitness accounts surfacing, describing what people observed.
Yes, and these accounts are truly compelling. Many individuals describe seeing a metallic object, frequently likened to the shape of an acorn.
The acorn shape.
That's the key description. And notably, bearing unusual markings on its surface that some even liken to hieroglyphics. This particular detail is really central to the unerring questions surrounding the incident.
Then, almost as quickly as this object is seen, the military appears on the scene.
Precisely. Yeah. The rapid arrival of military personnel at the purported crash site is another key element of this story. It immediately sparked speculation about, well, what was this object that had crashed?
Right.
And what might the military have recovered?
The speed and the way they secured the area certainly raised questions.
Definitely. It felt very, very quick.
Let's delve a bit deeper into these eyewitness accounts because they seem fundamental to understanding what happened. What details from these accounts really stand out?
The eyewitness testimonies are indeed critical. They offer a sort of ground-level perspective on an extraordinary occurrence. What's fascinating here is the variety of details people recalled.
Like what specifically?
Well, some emphasize a powerful glow emanating from the object as it descended. Others focused on its distinct shape. While acorn is the most common descriptor, some mentioned a bell-like form.
A bell. Interesting.
Yeah, or even something resembling a more traditional saucer. And of course, the recurring detail of strange markings is significant.
It's intriguing how our brains process unusual events. The discrepancies in the shape acorn, bell, saucer maybe reflect how fear or just the sheer strangeness can alter perception.
Absolutely. It highlights the inherent challenges in relying solely on subjective memories when investigating objective phenomena, doesn't it? Trying to piece it together later.
And the accounts weren't just about the object itself, were they? People also reported on what transpired afterward.
Exactly. Numerous witnesses reported significant military activity around the alleged crash site very shortly after the event. This included the arrival of personnel, various vehicles, and the swift cordoning off of the area, which understandably led to considerable local curiosity and, as our source material notes, a shared experience of both apprehension and intense curiosity within the community.
It must have been a remarkable scene for a small town to witness. Military rolling in like that.
Undeniably. And as researchers have revisited these accounts over time, what becomes evident is the complexity of human perception in unusual circumstances. There were certainly discrepancies, but also notable overlaps
Right.
in what people reported, suggesting that something tangible did occur, even if the precise details remain debated.
Which raises that question about interpreting subjective experiences to understand objective events.
Exactly. How do you weigh those accounts?
Now let's focus on this mysterious artifact itself. Based on what the eyewitnesses reported, what can we surmise about it?
Drawing from the compiled eyewitness accounts, a picture begins to form of a metallic object, consistently described as being roughly acorn-shaped
There's that acorn again.
and approximately 12 feet in length. Many recalled a distinctive bronze-like hue to the metal. And, as we discussed earlier, the presence of unusual embossed symbols, often referred to as hieroglyphics, was a key characteristic noted by many who claimed to have observed it up close.
And where was this object reportedly located? Down in the woods.
Reports suggest it was partially embedded in the ground at the crash site within the woods, yeah. This detail kind of lends weight to the idea of a significant impact, not just something gently landing.
Were there any other sensory details that people remembered? Sounds, smells?
Yes. Quite interestingly, some locals reported a peculiar smell in the vicinity of the crash site. Descriptions varied. Some said burnt metal, others something completely indefinable.
Indefinable.
Yeah, like nothing they had encountered before.
Yeah.
These sensory details can often be quite evocative and, add a certain weight to the eyewitness accounts.
It sounds like the local authorities were among the first to respond to the scene. Fire department, police.
Indeed. The fire department and local law enforcement were among the initial responders. However, their involvement appears to have been relatively brief.
And then the military took over.
Pretty much. They were quickly followed by the arrival of the military, who then assumed control, immediately cordoning off the area and, according to numerous reports, removing the object later that night under cover of darkness.
That swift military takeover is a major point of contention, isn't it? It fuels so much of the speculation.
It really does. That action itself is maybe the biggest source of the mystery.
The swift and decisive military response we just discussed raises a crucial question. What was the government's official stance on this, and how did that shape the narrative?
Well, the perceived lack of transparency surrounding the military's retrieval efforts is a primary reason why the Kecksburg incident continues to generate so much discussion and has become, fertile ground for conspiracy theories.
Especially during the Cold War, right? Any unidentified object would raise alarms.
Exactly. Looking at the Cold War context, beyond just hiding maybe advanced tech, the intense paranoia and competition with the Soviet Union likely played a significant role. Any unknown object, especially one that crashed on U.S. soil, would have been treated with extreme caution, regardless of its true nature.
To prevent potential exploitation by an adversary.
Precisely. Even if it was just a weather balloon gone wrong, maybe they wouldn't want the Soviets knowing how they retrieved things.
What kind of official explanations were offered at the time?
Initially, the military really downplayed the entire event. They suggested that what people witnessed was likely just a meteor or perhaps a falling satellite. Standard stuff.
But that didn't sit well with the witnesses.
No, many eyewitnesses and researchers found those explanations unconvincing, particularly given the descriptions of a structured metallic object, the acorn shape, the markings. It just didn't add up.
This disconnect between official explanations and eyewitness accounts, it's a recurring theme in many UFO-related incidents, isn't it?
It absolutely is, time and again.
And this absence of a clear explanation really fueled the suspicion of a cover-up, didn't it? As you, the listener, can imagine, this lack of transparency just breeds questions.
Precisely. The speed and secrecy of the military operation led many to believe that the government was actively concealing something significant. Whether it was evidence of extraterrestrial life or maybe some form of advanced secret technology, they didn't want the public or adversaries to know about.
It brings up an important point about the balance between national security and the public's right to know.
A constant tension, especially in cases like this.
Our source mentions Project Blue Book. What role did that play in the investigation of the Kecksburg incident? Did they look into it?
They did. The U.S. Air Force's Project Blue Book, which was the official investigation into UFO sightings at the time, did examine the Kecksburg incident. However,
there are questions.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
There are persistent questions regarding the thoroughness and, crucially, the transparency of their investigation. Many feel that the conclusions reached by Project Blue Book, basically saying it was a meteor, were too dismissive.
They didn't adequately address the compelling eyewitness testimony or the military involvement.
Exactly. It felt like they glossed over the really problematic parts of the story for the official explanation.
It's intriguing that some UFO cases, like Roswell, have seen at least some level of eventual government acknowledgement or revised explanations over time. How does Kecksburg compare in that regard? Still just a meteor?
That's a key point of contrast. Unlike Roswell, where there has been some, let's say, evolving narrative and release of information over the years, the official stance on Kecksburg has remained largely consistent. It was likely just a meteor, period.
And that lack of evolving acknowledgement for Kecksburg further solidifies the suspicions for those who believe in a cover-up.
It really does. It makes it seem like they have something specific they still don't want to talk about regarding Kecksburg.
And with the more recent shift in government approaches to UAP's unidentified aerial phenomena, the newer term, how are historical incidents like Kecksburg being viewed now? Is there fresh interest?
That's a fascinating angle. With the renewed interest and more open discussion about UAPs in recent years, historical incidents like Kecksburg are being re-examined, at least by researchers and the public. Some researchers hope that this new context might lead to a fresh look at old evidence, maybe FOIA requests yielding something new, perhaps even a more transparent understanding of what occurred.
It raises the question of whether past incidents dismissed as insignificant might hold greater significance in light of new data and perspectives.
Could be. We just don't know yet if this new era of UAP interest will unlock anything about Kecksburg specifically.
The government's reaction, or lack thereof in terms of a clear explanation, naturally leads us to wonder. If it wasn't a meteor, then what could this object have been? Let's explore some of the prevailing theories about its origin.
Okay, the theories surrounding the origin of the Kecksburg artifact truly cover a wide spectrum. You've got your more conventional explanations, a meteor, specifically a bolide, perhaps, given the brightness, or some form of space debris re-entering. Then there's the possibility it was a secret military project, maybe an experimental aircraft, or even a Soviet probe that malfunctioned.
And the big one.
And, of course, the theory that most captures the public imagination, that it was of extraterrestrial origin.
What are the key pieces of evidence often cited in support of the extraterrestrial theories? The markings.
The unusual markings reported by multiple eyewitnesses are definitely a significant point. These weren't readily identifiable as any known earthly script or symbols. And the rapid and extensive military response is also frequently cited as evidence. The argument goes, why such a strong, secretive reaction to a supposed meteor? It fuels the idea they recovered something far more significant.
And what about the theories involving a military or experimental craft? What's the basis for those ideas? Cold War tech?
Exactly. These theories often draw heavily on the Cold War context of 1965. It was a period of intense technological development and secrecy, particularly in aeronautics on both sides.
So it could have been ours or theirs.
Potentially. The idea is that the object could have been some kind of experimental U.S. aircraft, maybe a lifting body or drone prototype, or even some speculate a failed Soviet satellite or probe like Cosmos 96, though the timing and trajectory details are debated. The military's swift action in this theory was to secure their classified tech, or perhaps sensitive Soviet tech.
What about the more conventional explanations, like a meteor? How do proponents address the acorn shape and markings?
Those explanations point to the initial reports of a bright fireball, which is consistent with a large meteoroid entering the atmosphere. Skeptics suggest that the perceived shape and markings could have been misinterpretations.
Due to distance or atmospheric effects.
Right, or even the power of suggestion once the acorn idea started circulating. While the initial fireball could certainly be a meteor, the reported structured nature of the object, the specific shape, and the lack of widespread debris fields typically associated with meteor impacts, well, they raise questions for that theory.
Some have mentioned atmospheric anomalies, like ball lightning.
That's another natural explanation sometimes floated, though matching the reported duration, trajectory, and apparent metallic nature to ball lightning is also challenging.
It sounds like there's no definitive answer, and the debate continues to this day. No smoking gun.
Precisely. The lack of conclusive physical evidence released to the public and the conflicting interpretations of the available testimony mean that the true origin remains an open question, frustratingly open for many.
It's remarkable how these kinds of events can become interwoven with local culture. Let's discuss the role that local folklore plays in the Kecksburg story. Was there already weird stuff happening there?
This is a genuinely fascinating layer to the Kecksburg incident. Our source material highlights that tales of unusual lights and other unexplained phenomena in the Kecksburg region actually predate the 1965 crash.
Really? Before 65?
Yeah. This suggests a community that was already somewhat familiar with the idea of unusual aerial events. Not necessarily UFOs, but just strange things in the sky.
So these pre-existing legends could have influenced how people interpreted what they witnessed in 1965, kind of primed them.
Exactly. Local legends can establish a framework, a lens, through which people understand new, unexplained events. If a community already has stories about strange lights, they might be more inclined to interpret a real event, even one with a potentially conventional explanation, through that existing lens of the unusual or even extraterrestrial.
It's a compelling intersection of real-world occurrences and cultural narratives.
Absolutely.
And how has the Kecksburg incident itself become a part of that local folklore over the decades?
Oh, the 1965 incident has certainly become deeply ingrained in the Kecksburg community's stories. It's a narrative passed down through generations, solidifying its place in local history and memory. The acorn or bell-shaped object has, in a way, become a local legend in its own right. They even have a replica there now.
It seems like folklore can both enrich the story, give it texture, but maybe also make it more challenging to ascertain the factual core of events after all this time.
That's a very insightful observation. While folklore adds depth and cultural significance to the narrative, it can also blur the lines between verifiable facts from 1965 and embellished retellings over time. Memory shifts. Stories evolve.
It underscores the challenge researchers face when attempting to separate objective reality from subjective community beliefs, especially decades later.
A huge challenge in historical cases like this.
When we consider Kecksburg, it's hard not to draw parallels with other well-known UFO cases. What comparisons can we make? Roswell comes to mind immediately.
Drawing comparisons is indeed helpful in placing Kecksburg within a broader context and identifying recurring patterns.
Mm.
Roswell, 1947, yeah, that's the obvious one. Both involve a reported crash,
Check.
swift military involvement,
Check.
and significant speculation about a government cover-up.
Check. The core elements are there. But there are also notable differences between the two, aren't there? The object description, for one.
Yes, the nature of the reported objects differs significantly. In Roswell, the narrative often involves a more classic flying saucer and, controversially, alleged alien bodies. In Kecksburg, the consistent description is of this acorn-shaped metallic object with markings. No bodies reported.
And the scale of public and media attention also varies quite a bit.
Massively. Roswell has achieved far greater notoriety and a more widespread impact on popular culture. It's the UFO case for many people. Kecksburg's impact, while significant within UFO research circles and locally, has been somewhat more localized.
What about more recent cases? Our source mentions the Phoenix Lights. How does that compare?
The Phoenix Lights incident of 1997 shares some similarities with Kecksburg, mainly in terms of widespread public interest and numerous eyewitnesses reporting unusual aerial phenomena over a populated area.
But it wasn't a crash, right? Just sightings.
Correct. The Phoenix Lights primarily involve visual sightings of lights and huge, silent V-shaped or triangular formations, rather than a reported physical crash and recovery like in the Kecksburg case. Still, both incidents highlight the power of multiple eyewitness accounts in capturing public attention and raising serious questions.
So, what key lessons can we draw from comparing these different cases? Patterns and responses.
Comparing these cases reveals several recurring themes. We often see similar patterns in government responses, frequently characterized by initial denial, downplaying the events, or offering explanations that witnesses find inadequate.
Mm-hmm.
We also observe the significant influence of local beliefs, like we discussed with folklore, and how media portrayal can really amplify or shape the narrative surrounding these incidents.
Right, the media angle is huge.
Ultimately, examining other cases helps us understand the complexities inherent in investigating and interpreting UFO phenomena. Kecksburg isn't alone in its ambiguity.
The Kecksburg incident has certainly captured the imagination of storytellers. How has it been represented in popular culture and various media? Documentaries, books?
Oh, definitely. The Kecksburg incident has left its mark. It's been explored in numerous documentaries that delve into the eyewitness testimonies, the allegations of government secrecy, and the various theories surrounding the artifact's origin.
Any specific titles mentioned?
Yeah, documentaries with titles like Kecksburg, The Untold Story, UFOs, The Secret History, and The Kecksburg Incident. A look back have brought this case to a wider audience, often featuring interviews with original witnesses or researchers.
And its presence isn't limited to just documentaries, is it? Books, too.
No, absolutely not. The incident has also been featured in various books and articles. Stan Gordon's Kecksburg, The Unsolved UFO Mystery, is considered a key text. He's a local researcher who's been on this case for decades.
Right, Gordon's name comes up a lot.
Yeah, his work meticulously examines the available evidence and witness accounts. And then you have broader analyses like Richard Dolan's work in UFOs and the national security state, which places Kecksburg within the larger context of government handling of such cases.
And these written works often go deeper than documentaries can.
Generally, yes. They
Uh,
can delve into greater detail, offer more in-depth analysis of the timelines, the witness consistency, the counterarguments.
Has the unique artifact itself, the acorn shape, become a kind of symbol in any way?
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
The distinct acorn shape and the reported markings have made the Kecksburg UFO a recognizable image within UFO lore. It's quite distinct from the typical saucer.
You see it in illustrations, online discussions.
Exactly. It has even appeared in art and music occasionally, serving as a reflection of our cultural fascination with the unexplained and our ongoing attempts to understand events that seem to defy easy explanation.
Given that no physical artifact has been publicly released or even officially acknowledged beyond Meteor, what attempts have been made at scientifically examining the Kecksburg incident? It seems tough without the object.
This is a critical aspect, and yes, it's incredibly challenging. The absence of the physical artifact following the military recovery presents a huge obstacle for any direct scientific examination.
So researchers are left with.
Researchers have largely been limited to analyzing the available evidence, which primarily consists of those eyewitness accounts we've discussed. Some modern scientific techniques could potentially be applied, like analyzing trace elements from soil samples at the crash site, if any were properly preserved and made accessible.
But that hasn't happened in a public way.
Not that's been widely published or accepted, no.
Yeah.
The absence of such publicly available analyses contributes significantly to the ongoing mystery.
And as we discussed earlier, those eyewitness accounts, while compelling, have inherent limitations for scientific analysis. Memory, perception.
Precisely. Memory is fallible. Perception is subjective, especially under stress. So, scientifically analyzing an event based solely on recollections gathered sometimes years later is inherently complex. You look for consistency, corroboration, but it's not the same as having the object itself.
Has the government's stance, the secrecy, in any way hindered scientific inquiry into the event?
Oh, absolutely. You could argue it's the primary impediment. The government's continued lack of transparency and the limited access to any definitive official information related to the recovery have created significant obstacles.
Can't analyze what you don't have access to.
Exactly. Without knowing precisely what was recovered, if anything, under what circumstances, and where it went, it's nearly impossible to apply rigorous scientific methodologies to the core artifact mystery.
So what are the current scientific perspectives on the Kecksburg incident, broadly speaking? Is it just dismissed?
The scientific perspectives are quite varied. It's not monolithic. They range from terrestrial explanations grounded in known phenomena like the bolide meteor theory or perhaps re-entry debris from something like Cosmos 96.
For a more open-minded consideration of unusual possibilities, especially given the persistence and consistency of some witness details. Some researchers focus on analyzing the historical data, the witness patterns, trying to see if they align with known natural events or technological failures, while others keep the door open. Others acknowledge the persistent, unanswered questions and the unusual aspects of the case, advocating for continued inquiry within the broader context of UAP research. It's really a blend of historical analysis, reliance on often imperfect eyewitness data, and the ongoing quest to understand unexplained aerial phenomena.
Of course, no discussion of a controversial UFO incident like Kecksburg would be complete without touching upon the conspiracy theories that have emerged. What are some of the prominent ones?
Well, the conspiracy theories related to Kecksburg largely originate, as you'd expect, from that lack of transparency we've been discussing all along.
The information vacuum.
Precisely. Popular theories often propose that the artifact was either an extraterrestrial spacecraft that the government recovered and has deliberately kept secret ever since. The classic Roswell-style theory.
Yes. Or, alternatively, that it was some form of highly advanced, perhaps reverse-engineered or just top-secret terrestrial military technology, maybe even Nazi tech sometimes gets woven in, that they didn't want the public or enemies to know about. The Nazi bell or Die Glock theory sometimes attaches itself to Kecksburg because of the bell shape some witnesses mention.
Interesting connection. And how has misinformation or just, sensationalism contributed to these theories over the years?
Misinformation has undoubtedly played a role. Sensationalized accounts, rumors passed down and changing over time, and certainly the rapid spread of unverified information online in more recent decades. It all creates fertile ground.
Easier for wilder theories to take root.
Exactly. More outlandish theories can take hold and gain traction, and it becomes increasingly difficult for someone just coming to the case to distinguish credible information and careful research from pure speculation and outright falsehoods.
Why do you think the public remains so captivated by these kinds of conspiracy theories, especially in the context of Kecksburg? What's the appeal?
I believe the public's enduring fascination stems from several factors. There's a natural human desire to understand the unexplained, right? And when official explanations appear insufficient or incomplete, people often seek alternative narratives that do seem to explain all the odd details.
Filling in the gaps.
Yeah. Plus, the notion of hidden knowledge, of powerful entities controlling information, that can be quite compelling, tapping into a natural skepticism towards authority for some. In the case of Kecksburg, the unusual nature of the reported event, coupled with the government's swift, secret reaction, created almost perfect conditions for these theories to flourish and persist.
So, as we bring this deep dive to a close, what would you say are the key takeaways regarding the Kecksburg incident? What should our listener remember?
I think the main thing is that the Kecksburg incident remains a compelling enigma. It's this narrative woven from, credible eyewitness accounts, persistent questions surrounding government secrecy, the influence of local folklore adding flavor, and this diverse array of interpretations about what that acorn thing actually was.
And still no definitive answers.
No. Despite numerous investigations, TV shows, books, decades of discussion, the fundamental questions of what actually crashed near Kecksburg that night and why it was handled with such secrecy, they continue to elude definitive answers.
It truly is a case that underscores the complex interplay of so many different factors: perception, secrecy, belief.
Absolutely. The convergence of personal experience, official narratives, or lack thereof, cultural beliefs, local legends, and the ongoing pursuit of scientific understanding. That's precisely what makes the Kecksburg incident so consistently intriguing and so enduring after all these years.
So here's a final thought for you, our listener, to ponder. What does the enduring mystery of Kecksburg tell us about our relationship with the unknown, and maybe our trust or lack of trust in official narratives? What aspect of this whole story resonates most deeply with you, and why? We encourage you to continue exploring the many layers of this fascinating case based on the insights we've uncovered in this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.